How's it going, everybody? It's time for the most hotly anticipated video in Marvel Strikeverse right now, and that is going to be Professor Xavier gameplay. And let me tell you, this guy's crazy. He's cracked, and he's actually making a lot of current, they're sort of meta characters, but he's bringing some characters to the forefront of the meta, which I think is really cool in a bunch of different game modes. Before we get into the gameplay, though, I want to quickly break down his kit in like a too long, don't want to read sort of function, because his kit is a book. His basic: huge damage, lots of debuffs. We got buff flips on immunity. If he's ability block, he's going to get extra speed. Clears the negative effects from this character. Any negative effect is going to give him a heal, evade, offense up. When this character throws an ice attack, it won't do any of this. So he's not a striker, okay? His special: he's going to clear exhaust if he doesn't have two of them. He's going to decay his negative effects. So he's going to get rid of his own trauma. He's also going to decay the enemy's positive effects. So that's going to get rid of the enemy safeguard. He's going to clear charge, defense down, blind, disrupt, trauma. Any controller is going to get ability block. He does this insane mind control. Calling the two characters with the highest damage, giving them extra damage for this attack. He summons in the Cyclops, clears battlefield effects. All of his attacks are unavoidable, cannot be blocked or counterattacked. His ultimate is an I win button. If he has offense down, which he never should because his passive is going to be clearing that anyway, he's going to gain offense up. And if he gains offense up, you're super dead. Otherwise, he's going to clear barrier. If you're below 25% life, you're just gone. You die. If you're at 100% life, you also may die because he has 750% piercing damage. And he's got about 1 million damage stat. Any characters killed from this, they're permanently dead. Once again, unavoidable, cannot be counterattacked. His passive is where it flips the game on its head. No assists, no taunt, speed up, defense up, darkness, or slow, or any sort of speed bar for his team or the enemy team until Professor Xavier takes a turn. This is huge. This is what we're going to play around. So what didn't they mention here? They didn't mention speed stat. That'll be his weakness. If you get the right speed stat characters or characters that go faster than him, 127, then you can maybe get control of him or whatever team he's with, and you go from there. On enemy turn, he's going to mind control that enemy to do an attack. This is stupid. This is really bad design in my opinion. Because although he stops enemies from doing an assist, so he stops Odin from doing assists, on Odin's turn, he'll make Odin do an assist. So Odin will get his battlefield effect up turn 1. They're going to be buddy-buddy on defense no matter what, because it adds an extra element of control you need to bring into the team, which is going to be a mind control. But for that mind control that does on enemy turn, the enemies gain additional damage, and it does max health, a la the, aka, like the Mephisto permanent damage, okay? The mind control characters will also clear barrier. Any mind control character, any enemy attack, increase Professor Xavier's speed by 15%, and will flip defense down and hit defense up. It makes him tankier. He's very squishy if you can get to him in time. Anytime an enemy uses their ultimate ability, if we don't have exhaust, we're going to gain barrier, and we're going to reduce the duration of negative effects by 1. Yeah, trauma is not meant to land on this guy unless he is heavily controlled. Enemies with defense down that normally can't gain trauma, they can. That'll be your Null, that'll be your Odin, that'll be your Annihilators in Arena, your Phoenix Force in Crucible. There you go. In Arena, mythical characters do not gain extra life. Rip Apocalypse, rip Super Scroll in Arena. But in other modes, they're fine. They're still very usable against Professor X, as you're going to see. And then the focus and damage of this character can only be reduced by negative effects, basically by offense down, which he might flip on you. Be careful. All right, with that out of the way, I do like him as a raider. He hits a bunch of people. He does insane damage. I think Striker's actually still fine for him. Though he's not doing that insane basic, it's still insane damage. Because his damage stat, as you see right here, even as a raider, he's at 847,000. If I make him a striker, what's he going to bring him up to? Like 970,000? Something like that? 943,000. You can go either way. All right, let's get to the gameplay testing, starting with Arena. Alrighty, so here we are in Arena, and Goofy Rexy has a nice big boy team on defense for us. We got Odin, Professor X, Mephisto, Endgame Thanos, nice proximity bomb if we get him to 50% too soon. And then Null to stop running Mephisto, because yeah, if you are expecting your team to get hit by a different Professor X, taunts are off the table. So you have to stop that Mephisto empowered punch, otherwise your Professor X is going to die, right? Because Mephisto does get that speed stat. It's the one blind spot that Professor X has. Unless you put in like an, well no, Emma doesn't stop Mephisto. No, so there is no blind spot. Yeah, so if you're expecting that you are going to be getting hit by a Professor X of your own, you don't bring a taunt. And if you're hitting Professor X, you definitely don't bring a taunt. The Return of Black Cat. This is funny. I'll show you guys two funny interactions. I don't think this is the final form of the defense you're going to see because of what I'm about to show you. Somebody that hasn't been meta defense in forever might finally make a return. But let's start here I have a very similar team, but I don't have in-game Thanos. I have Black Cat. Why? Because Trauma Stun is on the table, boys, and we need that Trauma Stun. If the Odin gets his Mind Control attack off, he'll cleanse a stun off Professor X, which is why I couldn't use Storm. I actually think that Storm becomes the best friend to Professor X in other modes, but here Black Cat kind of reigns supreme, unless, of course, you're facing off against Odin with Professor X in all places. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and do their basic here. That gives a nice defense down. Some of these debuffs are going to get cleansed, right? Black Cat takes that hit, but Black Cat, guess what? Safeguard and death proofs in Arena. Isn't that handy? Okay, so now I can do a bunch of things here. I can try and get a defense down on the Odin. Nailed it. And now guess what? Black Cat can stun the Odin. So now that Odin is stunned. I also could have stunned the Professor Xavier here. Didn't need to because he's dead, right? And now I could come in. I could use the basic. I could use the heal because it'll cleanse me. It'll put my battlefield effect up. There we go. Big damage coming in. Thanks for that hit, Null. Let me give you one of these. Okay, we're going to back out before we accidentally win this. And Professor Xavier literally hasn't taken a turn. And this game... Okay, now he is. This game is literally already decided. That's the hilarious part. I don't even know if this guy got his attack off yet. I'm going to see. Let's just force this endgame Thanos to do his attack to us if he hasn't already. Never mind. Guess what that was? That was 100% extra damage from the mind control from Professor X special. He's a beast, guys. Okay, but here's a character that I think will change Arena in a super hilarious way. And I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, think this is the end-all, be-all defense that you're seeing here. It's certainly like overpowered character soup. Overpowered has such a new meaning now. But this is just like really powerful character soup coming in. I think that's very interesting. But there's one character. And this is, I think they're going to have to patch this out. Because this is the same interaction that happens in Crucible against Immortals, if my phone wants to stop overheating. There we go. Kingpin. Yeah. The Madman is back. So, Professor Xavier stops. Oops, spinny winny. Professor Xavier stops on spawn taunts. He stops any sort of taunt that happens before he takes a turn. Except for minions. Except for summons. Not minions, sorry. Except for summons. So you see there, oh, sorry about the spins, that the Mephisto had to do his attack into the summon from Kingpin, which absolutely ruins the enemy Mephisto's damage and lets me get ahead of this Professor Xavier in a huge way. So I'm going to get to hit him with 2 different attacks. I'll just do another basic here. And the damage just goes crazy, right? So I'll probably do another basic here as well. So the battlefield effect is up, even though the special would have got it up. Doesn't matter. The striker attack finishes it. So what happens now? Well, Odin gets his battlefield effect up, right? Odin gets his battlefield effect up because of my Professor Xavier. This is the interaction that I super duper hate. I really, really do. And it wouldn't be that big a deal if Null and Professor X weren't tied on speed. But because they're tied on speed, what you just saw me do is I just gave myself more speed bar. So now Carnage is going first. And so now I have to eat multiple hits from this Odin's battlefield effect, which is why I do not know why they didn't put a line in where it's like mythical characters don't do mind control. Because they really did kind of make this. You see what's happening right now? Both Nulls are tied on speed stat with my Professor Xavier, but it went super sideways for me. And now I ate that. Okay, I'm still going to win, but I hate that interaction, which is why I much prefer using Black Cat there, because I can 9 times out of 10 get a stun on the Odin, and I don't have to worry about this. I just find it really silly. Anyway, this was great. This was super fun. I don't think you should look at this and be like, that's the defense I have to set. I have to set Kingpin instead of Endgame Thanos, and my Professor Xavier is more like, there's going to be lots of different variations here. Null is going to be on the team, because you have to stop any Mephistos. I don't know if Mephisto is going to be on the team. You might find a different character that you want to bring in instead. Interested to know what you guys are thinking, your first glance at Arena, but let's go check them out in War. And that'll kind of give us a good comparison on what to expect for Crucible. Oh, also just a quick aside, I thought this was super funny as well. So we can bring in Guardian with Kingpin, and oh, Guardian. Oh, Guardian. So we just let the null do his battlefield effect so that we know only one attack is then going to be hitting us. My Mephisto does have the offense up, so we just drop bombs on them here. Guardian offense up is actually kind of crazy. Yeah, you see what I'm seeing, guys? You see this damage that the enemy Professor X is taking here? Kind of a problem. Kind of a problem. Let's go ahead and we could basic here to get our battlefield effect up. And the striker attack takes out enemy Professor X. Before he gets turned, before anything matters, mind control happens. I don't have null anymore, so I don't need to worry about any sort of speed ties here. I can now come in and just crank the enemy Odin. The mind controls probably kill him here. Yeah, they sure do. Guardian Kingpin Arena meta? Say what? What year is this? All right, so the endgame Thanos is going to pop up with his passive. We just don't care, though, right? We just don't care anymore. We have assists. We have Professor X and Odin with the battlefield effect up. Like, this is just a foregone conclusion. I thought this was kind of gross. But yeah, Guardian giving offense up to Professor X is crazy, which you're going to see when we do some war footage here. And I mean, it looks yucky, but I won this one every single time I tried it. It's kind of wonky. It's kind of wonky. Wow, looks like I might lose here. Oh, wait. Odin still hasn't done any of his stuff yet. Okay. It's gross. All right, so one important thing I think we should test right away is, can we get through a Professor X team if it's kind of a budgetary team? I mean, yes, good with X-Men. Lots of extra life going to Professor X here. He is a tanky monster with Phoenix and Gambit there. So can we get through it with a budgetary team? Well, we know speed stat is to our advantage here. The problem is, if I go with Night Stalkers, they rely on their ults. I've tried using their specials, it doesn't work. So if I just use spam ults with the Night Stalker team, Professor X passive, where if he doesn't have exhaust, somebody uses their ultimate, he cleanses and he heals. He cleanses, he heals, he cleanses and he heals. So Night Stalkers, not going to work here. I'm not going to waste your time by showing you that. This team is somewhat interesting, and I will show you this one because I think, in my opinion, there is a interaction that should not be the case. They won't fix it. I guarantee they won't fix it. Probably because they don't know how, but also because it makes Professor Xavier stronger. Which essentially is that if you stun Professor X, which is his weakness, and he takes a turn, he doesn't take a turn. Him filling his speed bar and going back down to 0 does not constitute as taking a turn, so speed bar is still off the table. We'll see a couple instances of this here. So we'll go for the stun of Professor Xavier. That's great. I'll get a defense down on Professor Xavier. I'll put trauma on Professor Xavier as well, because I want him to have that trauma, so somebody like Phoenix can't cleanse him here. That's going to be with the Havoc special. All good so far. Okay? I want to see if Rogue goes first here. Rogue goes first, no turn me to rewind, hit my character. Because Professor X hasn't gone yet, so he's hurting his own team. Same way when Nightcrawler went. No turn bar. But this is the interaction that I hate more than anything else. Okay? Professor X took a turn. His speed bar went from 100% to 0. If I ult with Apocalypse now, I should be given another turn. And I'm not. And I super duper hate that interaction. I think that interaction is absolute trash. But I don't get to pick it. So let's go ahead and we're going to stun the Nightcrawler. I just use an ultimate, so Professor Xavier is going to shake off that taunt, or sorry, that stun. So now it's kind of like, if I don't kill Professor Xavier before his next turn, we just lose. Gambit gives him speed up. So there you go. There's lots of good synergy on this team, which makes this an auto lose. I'm not going to entertain it any further. So the question, can you use a budgetary team against a Professor X team if they use a crap team? I don't think so. No, I'm going to go ahead and say a no to that. You'll probably have to match it with your Odin. Which, honestly, that's not the end of the world. I'll still bring in Apocalypse to stop the Nightcrawler. I don't think that's the biggest loss these days. Though I guess you could just bring in Kingpin. I guess we'll bring in Kingpin, sure. Let's go ahead and do that. Well, that breaks up your underworld. Oof, what do you prefer, losing Apocalypse or losing Kingpin? I don't think we have another on-spawn summon taunt. I'm not sure. That'll be up to you. Let's just go in here like this, and we'll see that this does work now. This is fine. We will have to use Odin here. Could Mephisto work here? Absolutely. Would Super Skrull work here? Absolutely not. Would Null work here? Probably not. So we stopped the stun that maybe would have stunned Havoc, who's my trauma. Maybe would have stunned Storm, who's obviously my stun. Like, there's some bad things that could have happened there, so this is pretty good. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and give the trauma over here again. Wablamo. And then we did not do a mind control, so we'll just do a basic. Make sure we get that battlefield effect out. Rogue is just gone, and that's the thing. Like, Odin, if somebody puts a bad team around Professor X, Odin's still going to one-shot everybody around that Professor X. And so as long as we can control that Professor X, it's fine. Let's go look at a not-so-budgetary team thrown around Professor X. All right, so here's a not-so-budgetary team thrown around Professor X. We have Odin, we have Null, and we have the Annihilators. And one of the best parts of Professor X's kit is that he stops on-spawn tanks. Not named Kingpin Summon, apparently. So I would not be able to get to the Professor X to stun him and control him in time with the sort of team I used against the budgetary team. So I have to change my flow here, right? So without Professor X, there's really only one option in war, and that's Falcon. So this is kind of interesting. How could I get this to go? Well, first of all, I'd probably make Falcon a skirmisher for this to make sure he gets a vulnerable. And yeah, I'd still bring Black Cat. I'd still bring Jean Grey. I'd bring in Guardian. Actually, I don't think we used Black Cat in the last attack. I love Black Cat in Arena. And if there's no dodge, Black Cat is huge. Just Nightcrawler kind of stops that. So Falcon does put taunt on everybody. And then he's going to get a vulnerable on that Professor X. And then from there, my Black Cat is going to absolutely trash that Professor X. Well, we didn't get the best rebounds, but still some really good damage there. Jean Grey then comes in. She's going to put heal blocks so the enemy Odin can't heal up that Professor X. The extra damage comes in as well. Boom. And he's gone. Right? And this is not diamonds on Black Cat. Not diamonds on Jean Grey, who are two farmable characters that you could promote now. Now, will I get through the rest of this match? No, I'm not. No, I'm screwed. The rest of this match is over. I'd have to come in with whatever you would normally use for a cleanup and something like this. So does Professor X make a difference in war? Oh, yeah. All right, let me go through together a team that would beat this, including Professor X. All right, we'll just make one quick correction. We'll take Falcon out, put Professor X. Let's see if this works. And I put Skirmisher on Black Cat because I'm not going to have a Skirmisher mark from Falcon this time, so there's no point in making her Striker, right? Except if I want extra bleeds, I guess. But I'd prefer to make sure that I land the stun trauma on Professor X, which we did. That's fantastic. And now I'll get my heal block and defense down. Again, very fantastic. We get an extra Striker attack too. Is that it for Professor X right away? Yeah, he's dead. I don't even worry about anything. He's gone. He's gone, baby, gone. So now it's going to be between Null and Professor X. Who's going first? Looks like Null's going first. I can't gain slow. Professor X hasn't taken a turn yet. No slow for me. Let's go ahead. Let's take away that Odin battlefield effect as well as all their buffs. Cover them in debuffs. All right. Mind Control is going to one-shot that Odin because why wouldn't it? I'm not even worried about taking a Thanos hit anymore. Bring it on, Dork. I don't care. Does my Thanos go next? Oh, you got blind trauma? Sorry about that. Professor X just didn't want you to do anything today. All right. You know what I don't get, though? I still don't get to use my Falcon Punch because we do have an enemy Mephisto here. But screw that. Let's take the Mephisto out. I'm mad that he did that to me. So let's go ahead. Give him. We'll stun here. He's got trauma. Mind Control probably going to kill Null here. Yeah. Okay. Not hard when you have the right team, right? If you have Professor X, no matter what they put around Professor X, I think there's going to be budgetary ways to get around it without having to sacrifice your Odin or your Mephisto. Maybe I'm wrong. The community's going to find much better examples. But I thought this was a really good contrast between like, okay, what can I do if they try and cheap out on Professor X? What can I do if they go super hard Professor X? Super hard, probably burn attack just to kill that Professor X. You go from there. You lose so many of your weapons. So you're going to have to bring more to offense. Right? If they do a budgetary team, yeah, you can probably get through Professor X and kill a bunch of characters without going too hard. And maybe you just bring Odin so you just wipe the floor with it. Interesting dichotomy there. Let's go see what Professor X can do against other war teams with a very budgetary team. So let's go ahead and let's take away some of these characters that I might want to use elsewhere. Maybe I want to use Apocalypse elsewhere. Maybe I want to use Guardian elsewhere. Let's kind of switch it up a little bit. All right, well, let's get our Guardian somewhere else, giving somebody else offense up or being on defense. Let's throw Havoc in. I really like Havoc on this team because Starjammers are kind of just meh. Storm and Jean, I love just the idea of them together. And you know what? Silver Sable, she's a new character. They did give her a nice high speed stat. And she's got some interesting mechanics, especially if there are some villain characters around, which I like. And let's see how this goes now. So, why would I well, I wouldn't want to use Apocalypse, right? I'd rather save Apocalypse for maybe some sort of Astral Team or whatever the heck I'm trying to do over there. So I would like to not use Apocalypse. I'd like to save Guardian for maybe something else as well. Alright, so Silver Sable looking not great right out the gate. Havoc and Jean Grey are being completely wasted here because they're hitting into immunity. And Storm's attack was honestly wasted too, right? Let's be real. Okay, if that ability block went on Professor X, because of the way Professor X is currently kitted, that would have been bad for me. I don't have at least one villain enemy, so I'm not going to get the trauma or any of that stuff here, unfortunately. Sure, Havoc can hit right here as well. No trauma, but big damage. We like that. People are dead, and Professor X hasn't taken a turn yet. So what Professor X kind of specializes in is making characters that go before him have breathing room while stopping enemy characters who rely on speed bar, who rely on speed up, who rely on some really powerful things. He kind of neuters that. He tones it down quite a bit, right? And then when he goes, he's like, okay, now it's my show. So what I really like to Professor X is I don't want him to be the first character to go. It's not like Mephisto, right? What we want instead is we want to put a bunch of characters around him that do some interesting control effects. Maybe they can set up for some good burst damage. I'll tell you what, we'll save Storm. Let's get some more charges up on Storm before we throw that ult, because otherwise we're going to be here attacking this Medusa for a year. All right. Also, I love Storm. Oh my god. Storm calling in an assist for Professor Xavier might be one of my favorite interactions because Xavier hits so freaking hard. See, Jean Grey got called in for that assist. Check out this ultimate. How much is this going to do? Oh my god. It ripped apart. Get ripped apart. All right, I need to get through these dodges before I throw my Storm ult. Probably those death proofs or, yeah, as well. Cool. Get a little bit of a slow. You know what? Screw it. Let's just let it rip. Boom. Let it rip. There goes your last death proof. No assist comes in. Professor X will get it done. I love using this sort of budgetary team. These kind of hodgepodge characters that honestly I try to make Havoc, Storm, and Jean work on defense. They just don't really work. All right, let's grab that exact same team again. We'll throw it at the bottom. Throw it at the top of the list. And let's try them against Astral. And I think this is going to be an even more defined win than we just saw against the Absolute A-Force, because Miss Marvel Classic, let's be real, she's tanky. I'll stun the Emma here. She's the fastest character on the enemy team, sure. Big time damage goes in. Let's get our striker attack on the Strange. Besides Professor Xavier and Storm Ultimate, I don't really have any perma kills here, right? Okey-doke. Big damage, we like that. You know what? Let's stun the Strange over here. Oh, no, he actually has immunity now. Or let's just murder him. Oh, my God. That's great. We do have a villain, so we can get trauma on the people who don't have it, unless they have immunity. Or Silver Sable will take everybody out back, Old Yeller style. And this is phenomenal. This is great. Look at this. He was stopping. Oh, my God. He just he cranks them. He absolutely cranks them. I actually don't know if that's Professor X. Maybe the other characters I put up are just that good. I don't know. If there was Waking Ability, I think there's some sort of speed stat that would come into play there. All right, yeah, move it to that. All right, let's use this team here. Silver Sable is 100% wasted here. Silver Sable, there's no villains, so she's not going to do any ability block trauma. She's going to be hitting to immunity here, too. She's just here because of new stats, I guess. Probably bring a different character if I wanted to. Falcon goes. None of them get speed up. It neuters what they want, right? They want speed up. They want to race you. Okay, but now, and they don't get defense up either because of Professor Xavier. But now I still need to get through these death proofs. So can we actually manage that? Let's find out. All right, let's do striker attacks into Falcon. I guess we're just going to go for him first here. My entire team is faster than their entire team here. And it's not close. Let's see. Let's ult over here. We got that one death proof off Falcon. That's huge. Peggy's simply dead. Yep. Just Professor Xavier stopping them from getting speed and rebringing characters that have a relatively good speed stat. And they absolutely demolish. This would be super fun if your alliance lets you use Professor Xavier on the offensive side. But let's be real, that's probably that's not gonna be the case for anybody who gets Professor X early. But when you do get him, ooh, he's gonna be pretty fun. What else? I guess that's probably it. There's no real reason in testing anything else here. I guess, I mean, if you want to do Professor X against Professor X, this is probably super fast. So a couple things I've learned is that there are some really hot synergies with Professor X. The Odin synergy is really hot. The Storm Black Cat synergy, that's really hot. Just anybody above 128 speed, above that Odin, you need to start looking at them in an interesting way, because they could be how you beat enemy Professor X Odins, which I think is really cool. Yeah, I've learned a lot from playing him. I think he's a super fun character. I also think I'm getting ripped apart with his defense down gamut things. That's insane. But we're full life again, and now we're just going to take him out back. And let's take them down. All right. Hey, Professor X is still hanging in there. I probably should not have deviated. Probably should have just kept beating him up a little bit. All right, do the special here. Get some assists. Good stuff. There's Nightcrawler's first turn. Oh my god, poor Nightcrawler. He lost his speed up because I brought in my Professor X. I thought he was at the ult and saved the enemy team, but no. Professor S v Professor X is just crazy. Let's go to the save squad for a second. I want to talk about some interesting interactions I found while doing this testing. Okay, so just to kind of sum up what we've seen in this practice here, from the arena to the war stuff. Unfortunately, no Crucible stuff, but we can extrapolate some of the knowledge here, right? I think the top line is going to be the defense team you set if you are an early buyer of Professor X, because if the enemy can't get past your taunt, you're done. So, like, just if you have a pre-taunt in arena and they don't have Professor X and you do, that's going to be a win for you. As soon as you start facing off against other Professor X's, I think you throw Endgame Thanos in there. That proximity bomb was pretty cool. The Mephisto instead of the Gore could be a move as well, just for extra damage. But I literally like that speed stat stuff that happens between the Null and the Gore. Especially just trying to make your Null go before your Odin, or before the enemy Odin, more importantly, so that you don't get in this weird spot where you're eating two different Odin passives, depending on who wins the coin flip between your Professor X and your Null. But you have to bring Null because of Mephisto. As far as war goes, I really like this 4-piece here. I really liked Storm because she does have the turn 1 stun. She's super fast. She does assists, so she calls Professor X in for assists. It's just like insane damage. Jean Grey feels like a must for Professor X in a lot of circumstances, with the defense down and the heal block going before. I found that really impactful when you're trying to face off against teams that have an Odin. And Havoc, I just don't have a place for Havoc. He's an early character who does a stun. He does trauma, huge damage. He does ping damage. I really like all the damage that was flying around there. As far as the 5th goes, I did stuff like Silver Sable. I did stuff like Lilandra, even though she's so slow, she's kind of useless. I just like the idea of her and Professor X holding hands, I guess. There was a lot of different characters I could throw into that 5th slot. Obviously, we showed Black Cat. I didn't show you, but Black Panther, Shuri was huge. She's really fast. She puts defense down out there, which helped Storm and Jean do more damage overall. So there was a lot that I was able to play around with there as that 5th slot. So that's kind of what I like for War. In Crucible, it would be something similar to this thought, right? It would be fast speed stat characters that go around Professor X that do interesting things that don't break up my Immortal team and my Sergeant. I mean, it could be something like Night Stalker, as long as it's not into a different Professor X. It could be something like an Old Man Logan with a character that does a quick bleed, so he gets that speed stat. It could be Null Hive Mind. There could be lots of different things there, but it would be a similar check. It'd be an older Crucible team that relies on speed stat instead of on speed bar, because Professor X stops speed bar even on his own team. And I mean, if I'm not facing Professor X's, it could be speed up as well, I guess. This was kind of my nuclear war team. If I needed something to die real quick, I would do something like this. You saw I used Black Cat instead of Storm on that one big team, but Storm would have worked just as well because there wasn't dodges there. That would have been fine. And then these 3 slots, just some interesting characters I found when playing around with Professor X. Like I said, Black Panther Shuri, a quick defense down for somebody like a Black Cat to come in here and wreck phase. She could also go in and pull off an early dodge from Nightcrawler so that Black Cat could go in the wreck phase. But then it's just like, okay, well, I should have just brought Storm in that case. I should have brought Storm Havoc, because Storm lays the stun, Havoc lays the trauma, and then you're okay. Okay, Silver Sable. I wanted to find a good use for her. I think that she helps the team a little bit. Nothing much though, right? She's just there to maybe get some stuff out on villains, but honestly, like, she just gets completely overshadowed. But I thought, hey, I'm not really gonna have much use for her elsewhere, so you could throw it in there unless you're trying to use her to chase down Cosmic Ghost Riders. Because Professor X, he is an anti-Cosmic Ghost Rider for himself anyway, so whatever, right? Falcon, if I don't have Professor X, Falcon is a very interesting character to get around taunts, at least in war. And then Crucible, you have different options, right? You'd have your Immortal team if there's not an Odin there, or maybe you'd have to take that fight anyway, but do a couple burn attacks first. There's a couple interesting things you'd have to play around with for that. Endgame Thanos, Proximity Bomb, I thought that was super interesting. Emma Frost X-Men, we didn't see her here, but she messes with speed stat. So if I do have to use like Professor X with a Hive Mind Null team, Emma Frost could stop that, just stop everything in its tracks, right? Then I bring characters fast in 127, I can nuke Professor X, I can nuke the Null, go from there. So Emma Frost stocks, they're through the roof, man. She's a character you should max out. 3 diamonds, everything. Mephisto was very interesting, even with an enemy Null. Obviously, his damage is just kind of absurd. So keep your eyes up for Mephisto. He's definitely not a dead character by any stretch of the imagination. Dormammu. We didn't see it here. Professor X can be revived. Just like Krakoa, right? Like, so Professor X can be revived. Getting a revive once on him is pretty interesting. Just getting an actual revive on him with like a Minerva, I guess, is going to be a little bit harder to do. But there's some interest there. I'm just not sure. Well, I know it wouldn't translate to Arena because Mephisto comes into play then, right? But I think there's probably a world where we can play around with Dormammu there. Black Cat, you saw her use, is crazy. I love her with Professor X. She kind of fills the roles of both Storm and Havoc, getting that stun trauma. I just don't know how reliable landing that stun is. It wasn't a problem today, because I would do things like bring in Guardian. I made her a skirmisher. So it wasn't a huge problem today, but I'm not sure how much I like that. And I could find use for her elsewhere, kind of countering the guy beside her, Dormammu. And then Kingpin, boy, was he ever... It was ever funny seeing his interaction just bypassing the Charles passive. I think they'll probably try and patch that now, which would also fix Kingpin against Immortals, something they should have done a while ago. But if it's going to be a counter to Professor X in some way, shape, or form, they're not going to like that. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about Professor X. I think he's crazy. I think he's really fun, really, really powerful. There are some really in-depth things you need to be aware of, though. Like how he makes Odin do a mind control attack. So Odin's battlefield effect is going to happen. You have to get that battlefield effect off, right? Other things like how he can be stunned, how he can gain trauma, how he can give other people who normally couldn't gain trauma the ability to gain trauma, but doesn't really do it himself unless he's hitting them with that special. So lots of interest in this character for me. I think he does strike the right balance between super impactful, super OP, but not like game ruining. Like you saw, even against that Annihilator, Odin, Null, Professor X team, I could craft a very, very, very taxing team, but I can get down to Professor X, which means that I can go in and clean it up after that. So it's not like it's going to ruin you from getting full clears. You're just going to have to maybe keep more things on offense and go from there, which I know a lot of people aren't going to like, but I think that is the right balance with the most powerful character in Marvel Strike Force. Anyway, guys, I'm more interested in your thoughts. So let me know what you guys think about Professor X in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure you leave it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. But for now, stay happy, stay healthy, have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.